He was a man everyone in the town knew, not because of kindness, not because of generosity, but because of the sharpness of his tongue. He mocked everything holy. Churches, priests, prayers, the very idea of God, nothing escaped his ridicule. Whenever someone spoke of faith, he would smirk as if hearing a joke. Whenever someone mentioned miracles, he would burst into laughter, calling them fantasies for the weak. His confidence was loud, his disbelief even louder. But beneath that bold exterior was a deeper truth no one could see. His mockery wasn't born from strength. It was born from a wound he never healed, a disappointment he never confronted. Life had been unfair to him, and instead of seeking answers, he chose to spit at the heavens. It was easier to laugh at God than to admit he needed him, easier to mock faith than to face his own emptiness. People avoided arguing with him, for it only fueled his pride. He enjoyed tearing down what others believed in. Standing outside the church, he would joke about the statues, the rituals, even the people who entered to pray. To him, everything sacred was nothing more than superstition, a fragile illusion he could destroy with a single sarcastic comment. Yet, what no one knew, not even the man himself, was that Padre Pio had been spiritually aware of him long before they ever met. Pio could sense souls the way others sensed moods. And this man's soul was like a storm, loud on the surface, hollow beneath, and dangerously unanchored. But the day would come, sooner than the man expected, when all his laughter would fade. A moment when mockery would face reality. A moment when Padre Pio would see the truth hiding behind that arrogant smile. The man first encountered Padre Pio not by intention, but by accident. He had come to the monastery with a friend, mostly out of curiosity, and partly to entertain himself by observing what he called religious drama. As he entered the courtyard, he noticed Padre Pio surrounded by people seeking blessings. He smirked, whispering to his friend, "Look how desperate people become when they need miracles." But the moment Padre Pio's eyes lifted and met his, something changed in the air. The man felt a strange stillness settle over him, as if time had paused for a heartbeat. Padre Pio's gaze was not angry, not condemning. It was sorrowful. Deeply sorrowful, as if he were seeing something no one else could. Without being asked, Padre Pio walked toward him. The crowd stepped aside. The man laughed nervously, unprepared for the priest's quiet intensity. Pio spoke softly, yet every word carried weight. "My son, the path you walk is dangerous. Mockery may hide your pain from others, but it does not hide it from God." The man scoffed, pretending not to care. "I'm doing just fine without heaven," he replied with a half-smile. Padre Pio shook his head gently. "Your heart is not as you show it, and the soul, when wounded, cannot be repaired with laughter." The words unsettled him, but pride won. He shrugged and walked away, muttering jokes to reclaim his confidence. Yet as he left, Padre Pio whispered a final warning. "When the final hour comes, you will understand what now you refuse to see." To the man, it sounded like dramatic religious talk. But to Padre Pio, it was a prophecy, one that would unfold painfully, inevitably, and sooner than anyone expected. It was years after their first encounter when Padre Pio was praying in the dim silence of the early morning. The chapel was quiet, lit only by the flickering flame of a single candle. As he knelt in deep prayer, he suddenly felt a heaviness descend upon him, a spiritual weight, thick and suffocating, as if a storm cloud had entered the room. Then the vision came. Padre Pio saw the man, older now, tired, worn down by life. The laughter he once used to mock the sacred had faded, replaced by restless nights and a constant emptiness he tried to drown with noise and distractions. But it was not the man's earthly life that Padre Pio was being shown. It was his soul. In the vision, the soul appeared trapped in a vast darkness. Not because God had abandoned him, but because he had spent years closing every window of light offered to him. Every moment of mockery had become another layer of shadow. Every refusal to believe had become another chain. And every time he pushed away grace, a new distance formed around him. Padre Pio watched as the soul kept shouting into the darkness, the same sarcastic jokes, the same mocking tones, as if humor could protect him even here. But in that vast void, his own words echoed back, hollow, meaningless, unable to hide the fear growing inside him. What shook Padre Pio most was not the darkness surrounding the soul, but the loneliness. A loneliness so deep it felt endless. The soul wasn't being punished. It was trapped in the consequences of its own choices. A prison built slowly, day by day, laugh by laugh, denial by denial. Padre Pio wept. He understood the terrible truth: mockery may wound God, but it destroys the soul. Years passed, and the man who once mocked God began to face a truth he could no longer laugh away. His life was nearing its end. His health declined rapidly. The jokes stopped. The sarcastic comments faded. What remained was a silent, restless fear, a fear he tried to ignore but could never escape. Padre Pio, miles away, felt a sudden spiritual disturbance one evening while praying. It was not a vision, not yet, but a pull, as if a soul was standing at the edge of a cliff and the wind was calling his name. Padre Pio immediately knew someone was dying in danger. That night, Padre Pio saw the man again in a sudden vivid spiritual vision. He saw him lying in a small room, breathing heavily, his face pale, his eyes filled with a fear he had never allowed himself to express before. He was surrounded by people, but spiritually, he was alone. Padre Pio also something else, something far more terrifying. Demons stood at the foot of the man's bed, not with fire or violence, but with quiet confidence. They had watched him his entire life, waiting for this moment. They whispered the same mocking words he once used. God isn't real. This is all nonsense. You lived your truth. That's enough. The man wanted to cry out for help, but pride sealed his lips. The words God and mercy hovered in his mind, but fear and years of disbelief pushed them away. Padre Pio realized what was happening. The man was being given one final chance, one final moment to turn toward the light he spent a lifetime avoiding. Padre Pio prayed intensely, begging God to break through the man's hardened heart, even in the last second. Because sometimes a soul only recognizes truth when death is one breath away. In the final moments of the man's life, Padre Pio received one last vision, not of the man's face, but of his soul standing on the threshold between darkness and light. The room around him faded, and only eternity remained. The soul trembled. On one side stood the darkness he had shaped with years of mockery, disbelief, and pride. It was familiar, the place he had unknowingly prepared for himself. On the other side, a narrow beam of light stretched toward him. It was small, almost fragile, yet infinitely powerful. Padre Pio watched as a battle unfolded in a single heartbeat. The demons whispered, feeding his despair, "You wasted your life. You mocked God. He won't take you now. It's too late." But then something unexpected happened. The man's final memory rose before him, not a moment of sin, but a moment from childhood when he once prayed with sincerity before cynicism hardened his heart. A memory untouched by mockery, a memory of innocence. And from that memory came a single cry, silent but real. God, if you exist, help me. In that instant, the light surged. Padre Pio saw the mercy of God reach toward the soul faster than the darkness could pull him back. Grace entered where pride finally collapsed. The demons fled in rage. Padre Pio whispered through tears, "Even one honest breath can save a soul." The man died moments later. But he did not die alone. He died forgiven.